Hello, guys, and welcome back to the FPL Duo. We're back again for another stream. This is the price reveal for obviously the 2023-24 FPL season. So, as we know, FPL did tweet out, that there's going to be a live stream, today at 1 p.m. UK time. Obviously, the price reveal has already happened, but we're just gonna do a stream to react to it, give our thoughts, what we think of the prices so far, and then just discuss the players that have been revealed today, because there's been quite a few announcements, some surprises, and we're gonna give our thoughts and just our initial reaction. So how you doing, Jordan? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's good, and we finally found out what the big news was. Obviously, the price reveals for players, which is a bit of excitement. The first reveals of those, so it's a lot to digest and a lot to talk about going through these player reveals.
Obviously FPL is coming very soon. I think probably it's looking like a Wednesday or a Thursday release now, so that should be good. But let's quickly bring up the players and then discuss. First up is actually two players. You got Martin Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes. Let's start with Odegaard. So we did expect a price rise for Odegaard, especially after the season he had last year with Arsenal. Obviously, they did have a really good season. Martin Odegaard comes in at 8.5 million. I believe he was 6.5 million last season, so it's about a 2 million increase. But I think that we did expect that coming from Odegaard. I think it's going to be interesting to see as well what other players like Saka, for example, is priced up. I'd expect Saka to be maybe 9 million, 9.5. I do expect him to be slightly more expensive than Odegaard. But 8.5 I think is a decent price for Odegaard. And what's your thoughts on it anyway, Jordan, when you saw 8.5 first? Obviously, he was 6.5, I think, last season.
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised that Odegaard would be around the 8 million midfielder price. I think 8.5 is a bit. I think I would prefer him if he was 8 million instead of 8.5, just to save that 0.5 million. But he did have a great season. He did score 15 goals and get 7 assists, so it was obviously expected of a price rise. But it's quite a slightly bigger one than I expected. But he is expensive. He's going to be expensive for a midfielder for Arsenal, so it will be interesting to see if a lot of people pick Odegaard to be in their first teams in game week 1.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many managers actually start with Odegaard, because they do have some nice fixtures, Arsenal, at the start. So we'll have to do. Obviously, we're going to do our drafts on the game launches. So make sure you do tune in for that. So so you can see, if we do include him in our draft. But 8.5. I don't think it's a bad price. I think that's fairly. I think that's quite fair. But moving on to Bruno Fernandes. So I've got a comment here actually coming through. Yeah, both of them. Get me an ice cream, please. Great to have you back, boys. Yes. Sorry for the noise. The background noise, very loud, as you guys could probably tell with my microphone picks up everything. But I'll be getting you an ice cream. Don't worry, Colm. But nice to have you on as well. Also, Jordan, I'm getting a little static on your mic again. That's what's also, if you can unplug and plug your mic in, if that's okay, and maybe mute yourself, or unmute it. So can you guys tell as well? This is I've muted you, Jordan, and it's gone quiet, and then when I unmute you, it goes a bit fuzzy. So sorry, guys, bear with us for a sec. I'll let you connect back up, Jordan.
How's that?
Yeah, it's a bit better. Still slight, but it's not as bad as before. Okay. What was I going to say? Anyway, Bruno Fernandes. Let's move on to the Man United midfielder. Now, he's had quite a big price decrease, hasn't he? So I think he was he 10.5 or something like that, wasn't he?
No, around 9.
Was he 9.5, I think. Let us know exactly what he was, because I'm pretty sure he was around 10 million. But Bruno's come down quite a lot, and on the face of it, it looks like a better price for him, I think, because we know he didn't actually score as many goals as previous seasons, so we did expect a small decrease from him. I think the 8.5 million is, I think that's quite fair, to be honest. I know a lot of people think it's quite cheap. I know he's on penalties, which is a good thing to have. But at that 10 million mark, I think it was 10.5, Jordan. But
Oh,
now
okay.
it's more realistic to bring in. I think a lot more people will probably be tempted to actually bring Bruno in and have him in our teams, because I remember last season it was very hard to fit Bruno in. The only time we got him in was for double game weeks, and when it was like a single game week, we couldn't really have him in our team. So I think 8.5 million is a better price for him, and it's definitely more tempting now to bring in a Bruno, someone like that, longer term, at that price point. So yeah, what's your take on Bruno being the 8.5 million mark, and is it someone that you could potentially think becomes a serious option now in terms of like longer term, not just like for double game weeks now?
Yeah, I think Fernandez becomes more of an FPL asset this season, especially for that price drop. He now falls around that 8.5 or 8 million sort of area, like same with Odegaard. So yeah, for in terms of midfielders for Man United, he's probably the best standout one, and hopefully with Man United signing a decent forward, they may promote Bruno to excel in his stats this season, and maybe that might pay off for some FPL owners that do go for Bruno, because I have been thinking about it, contemplating whether Bruno will be in my team. He did do well when I had him previously in the season, but I was happy to see that his price drastically dropped to 8.5 million. Considering the season he had, he did score 8 goals and get 8 assists, so it wasn't too bad of a season for him. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the price drop for Bruno.
Yeah, I think we did expect him to come down slightly from that 10, was it 10.5? But yeah, definitely becomes a better option now, I think. Let us know, guys, what you think of the price reveals for Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Let us know your thoughts as well in the chat. But yeah, I think both prices are fair. And yeah, let's move on to the next the next players that have been revealed, and that is actually another interesting players. Really, I mean Watkins and Mitoma. Let's start off with Mitoma because that's the big one. A lot of us had Mitoma in our teams actually last season. He was quite popular near the end, especially after the World Cup. He kind of went on a run where he started scoring quite a lot of goals. And yeah, Mitoma comes in at 6.5 million, which might be cheaper than a lot of us thought. And I was expecting him to be around the 7 million mark. So he's slightly cheaper than I thought he'd be. Um, Mitoma did kind of struggle towards the end of the season. He got a bit tired and then he wasn't getting as many returns, a lot of blanks, I think, near the end. But at 6.5 million, he's very, it's a very attractive price to fit him into our teams. And Brighton were one of the better attacking teams last season. They scored quite a lot of goals. They are under De Zerbi playing some nice football, and we expect them to kick on again. But yeah, Mitoma 6.5 million. Surely, Jordan, that's a nice price, and surely he's going to be in a lot of our teams.
Yeah, I mean that 6.5 million. I was actually surprised that Tome was priced at that. That's pretty much a decent steal, considering the fixtures, like what we showed in the last video when we showed the fixtures for each teams. Brighton have one of the best fixtures on paper at the start of the season. So but there'll be a lot of people, I think, going for Matoma at that price, considering other midfielders, like as we've seen, are valued at 8.5 million. So you're saving that extra 2 million for a cheaper option like Matoma, who has decent fixtures at the start of the season. So yeah, I'm quite surprised but happy at the same time that Matoma is at 6.5 million, considering how well he played for Brighton in the season that we just had. But yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on to Ollie Watkins now. Ollie Watkins comes in at 8 million. We know he didn't start off the season too well. Obviously, Aston Villa did struggle under Gerrard. However, as soon as Emery took in charge, Watkins went on that scoring streak where he pretty much scored in every single week, it seemed like. And obviously, they finished the season off very well, Aston Villa. And 8 million, I think that is a lot to do with his ending of the season. Obviously, we know he ended the season really well. However, I think he is quite pricey in the sense that if you're looking to have Haaland in your team, who we will come on to, maybe a Harry Kane or a Salah, one of the other premiums, it's going to be maybe a bit tough to fit Watkins in. However, how many goals did he score actually last season, Jordan? Because he did get quite a few.
He scored 15.
Yeah, so 15 league goals. I think 8 million is quite fair for his performance. And Aston Villa are going to improve as well. I think they've just signed Tielemans and they've also signed Pau Torres, I think, the centre back. So yeah, I'm expecting good things from Villa next season with Emery's full season. And yeah, 8 million I think is quite fair, but I think it's going to be hard to fit him into our teams. For me personally. But yeah, the fixtures as well. We've talked about. I don't think they're great, are they? Aston Villa's start.
No, they weren't particularly high on the difficulties ratings for their fixtures.
Yeah, looking at who they have, I think they start off the season to Newcastle, don't they? Away, I think it is as well. So that's a tough one. They got Villa and then Burnley. After that, they've got Liverpool. So it's not the greatest start, but once the fixtures turn a bit easier, maybe Watkins does become an option. Um, but yeah, definitely one to watch. Definitely. Let's move on now to some Sheffield and Luton players. Now, obviously, I don't expect many of us to probably start with these guys in our team. However, obviously, because they're newly promoted teams, it is good to see some cheap forwards because I think last season there wasn't many 5.5 million strikers, especially ones that start matches. Because Solanke, who was promoted last season, was around 6 million, I think. Even Mitrovic, who was promoted last season, was around 6.5. So we've got 5.5 million strikers that are actually going to start most games. So that could be decent, having a playing forward for that cheap. Morris, we know, is Luton's main man. He did score, I believe, quite a few goals for them in the championship last season. So he could be an interesting option. However, Luton do actually have some decent fixtures. I've looked at Luton's fixtures and they're not too bad. If you want to take a punt on someone like Morris, it could pay off. But I think it's tough to fit in these type of players, especially we've not seen how they're going to fare in the Premier League. But yeah, 5.5 million strikers, Jordan, that will start. Do you think it's worth maybe bringing one of them in?
Yeah, I think at the opportune moments you could possibly bring in a Luton forward, um, like Morris, just because his price is really cheap. I think that's what's nice about it for a forward because for the matches they do have in between, Luton do have surprisingly one of the best fixtures um, higher up there in the season, especially the Burnley at home one. You could pick a forward like Morris solely for that fixture, and then they got another decent fixture further down the line in another game week, which I think is at home too. So you could individually pick like a Luton forward for certain games where you think they're going to score goals in, because Luton will score goals. There's no doubt in that. They may not have a great start to the season. Obviously, newly promoted teams do struggle, but I do expect goals to obviously come from them, and that may come from Morris, as in being a forward, and it could be a punt to go on if you want to
Mm.
obviously break the template for going for a non-popular pick.
Yeah, looking at Luton's fixtures, they got Burnley. Sorry, they start off at Brighton, and then they've got Burnley, Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham, Wolves. Some decent fixtures for them, but again, we don't really know how they're going to fare in the Premier League. Whether they'll actually have a decent season, because a lot of people are expecting them to go down. And yeah, in Dai's case as well, another one to probably look out for in preseason and see how they do. Um, Moving on to the next set of players. Let's start off with I think the interesting one here is obviously Christopher Nkunku, the new signing for Chelsea. He comes in at 7.5 million, which I think is an interesting price point. Um, I think I've watched quite a lot of Nkunku in the Bundesliga, especially the Champions League, because I do rate him as a player. I think he's a good player, but we saw Chelsea last season did struggle. They finished, was it 12th in the end? So you know, I think one thing I do think about Chelsea, um, I think Chelsea are going to be where the value's at. I think because Chelsea had such a poor season last year, a lot of their players are going to be they're going to have a downgrade in prices, so they're going to be where the value is at, in my opinion. And taking punts on Chelsea players could actually pay off. But it's like last season because Man United, what 2 seasons ago now under Ragnick, if you guys remember, Man United had a very very poor season. They finished about seventh. Rashford, got downgraded to 6.5, and then obviously he had a bounce back. I think the same could happen to Chelsea assets, where they've been priced very cheap because of their poor season. But it's a new season, new slate. Everyone starts on 0 points, and with Pochettino coming in, I do expect Chelsea to have an uptick in form. So I am actually looking at Chelsea assets myself in case that they can turn it around. So yeah, and Nkunku at 7.5 is interesting, but I think it is a wait and see for me. Um, what's your take on in terms of that value, Jordan? Because Chelsea could be underlooked because of their poor season. Not many people will be, tempted by them, but could they have the value? Because obviously, as I said, you know, because of their poor season and the downgrades in prices that we're expecting from them.
Yeah, I think they can obviously turn it around. Chelsea, they're in the process of doing that by obviously eliminating the overcrowded team they have, but are making decent signings there, like Nkunku. I cannot say his name.
And Kunku,
Yeah, Nkunku. Uh, at 7.5 million forward, it is going to be tricky to fit a player like that in the
mm.
team, and especially when we don't know how Chelsea are going to behave at the start of this season. But again, their fixtures are pretty good. Well, after Liverpool at home in their first game week, they got West Ham, but then they play Luton at home, then they play Nottingham Forest at home, and then have Bournemouth, and then Aston Villa at home. So their fixtures after Liverpool become really good, and Nkunku could be a decent pick to go for those fixtures after Liverpool in terms of goal scoring, because they do have a manager now who's more attacking, like he prefers the attacking roles, and I think he could be a decent asset if you're willing to obviously trust Chelsea to obviously do have a great start of the season.
Yeah, so definitely a wait and see. I think with Chelsea, but I think they like I said, I think they're the values at Chelsea. I think this season for me, and yeah, as Colm says, I agree with his point. Is Reece James' price could be interesting if obviously he can stay injury free because he does miss a lot of games, which is a worry whenever we bring him in. Obviously, Cliver at Bournemouth is a 5 million. I don't think he's going to be a serious option for us, but we never know. Um, moving on to another few players. Let's actually talk about Embuemo and Eze. So Embuemo is an interesting one because he's actually a midfielder now. As you guys know, last season he was a forward. He has been reclassified to be a midfielder, and he's now priced at 6.5 million as well. Embuemo, I think, is an interesting player for this FPL at the start because obviously we know Tony is out. He's not going to play suspended for the first till up till Christmas, I believe. So Mbomo could become a serious option, and one that we could be looking at. I know you mentioned him in previous streams, Jordan. What's your thoughts on Mbomo at that price bracket? Now being a midfielder as well, are you tempted by him?
Yeah, this has fallen so perfectly. I don't know if it can get any more perfect for Embuemo. The fact that he's changed from a forward to a midfield makes it even more better because I think in the forward position Embuemo was in, it was pretty tricky to fit him in because obviously we had Kane, Haaland, and obviously these strikers in that position we can really fit him in. But because now he's a midfielder spot at 6.5 million, and because Tony is banned for the next 6 months, this makes him so attractable. He's almost pretty much 100% guaranteed going into my team from game week one, despite obviously their fixtures that Brentford do have coming up in their first games. But yeah, I think it's a really steal at 6.5 million. That's cheap, and we know how good Mbemba is, and potentially he's also going to be the penalty taker. So there's all these nice positives for bringing in Mbeumo from day one, and obviously holding him for I'll say a few weeks. I say because obviously Tony won't be back anytime soon, and Mbeumo is going to pretty much replace him in that position. And nowadays, a midfielder in fantasy, uh, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I think for Mbeumo at 6.5 million.
Okay, moving off to Eze, who comes in at 6.5 million. He also had a brilliant season, didn't he, as well, under Palace, especially near the end of the season where he did start scoring quite a few goals when Hodgson took in charge. I think Eze 6.5 million. I think that's a fair price, probably. But again, it's going to be hard to fit all these players in. So he could become an option when Palace's fixtures turn decent again. I've not seen Crystal Palace's fixtures. I'm going to pull them up right now. I'm not sure who they start the season off. So they start the season off to Sheffield, I believe. So that's not a bad start. Sheffield away. Then they've got Arsenal, Brentford, Wolves, Villa, Fulham. So it's not too bad. You could take a punt on someone like Eze. Also, as we guys do know, Zaha's probably going to leave on a free. So that could mean Eze is on penalties as well. So if Eze gets penalties and he obviously is going to become a more prominent role in the team, that could be a big plus for Eze. So yeah, one to watch. Eze definitely, and Mbeumo as well. At the price brackets, I think they're both very interesting options and ones that we will consider throughout the season. But whether they start in our team, I'm not sure yet. And yeah, Colm says Mbeumo could be on penalties. Yeah, that is possible. He could be on penalties, which makes him a greater asset as well. Nanje says, "Hey, great to have you guys around again." Yeah, welcome to the stream, Nanje. It's been a while, but yeah, thanks for everyone that has joined the stream. If you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to smash the like button and also make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Sorry, moving on to now, let's discuss some goalkeepers. As we know, we've got the price for Leno and Pickford today as well. Now, Leno and Pickford come in at 4.5 million as well. So two cheap goalkeepers. I believe they actually play each other on the first day of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to double check who Fulham Everton is. Yeah, game week 1 is Fulham Everton. So they actually play against each other. But after that, they rotate decent, they rotate quite well. So yeah, two cheap goalies. I think Leno was really good last season, wasn't he? Did get quite a lot of save points. Pickford again, obviously Everton did struggle. They just about survived relegation. But are we considering either one, Jordan? I think they could be interesting. Fulham's have obviously Everton game week 1, then they've got Brentford, then Arsenal, then City, then Luton, and then Fulham. Whereas Everton have Fulham, obviously, and then Villa, Wolves, Sheffield, and then Arsenal. So you can rotate these two goalies around. However, obviously, I don't like having two playing goalkeepers anyway. But what's your thoughts on these two? Is that something that you think you'll be going with, or do you prefer your premium goalkeepers?
I think obviously from last season there was a few which were priced around a decent margin in terms of goalkeepers. This season though, it looks like it's sort of gone back to where it originally was and gone for cheap goalkeepers where the premiums may be a bit too expensive for the starting 11. So this could be a possibility, yeah. 4.5 million playing goalkeepers, it could be something to go for, as there's not much real value in goalkeepers in terms of points, really, apart from obviously their saves and clean sheets and penalties that they save. So you could possibly opt for cheaper options in goal, like Leno and Pickford have both that are playing, and potentially swap them out depending on what fixtures either one has, whether one has one better than the other. So yeah, I mean it's not really ideal, I don't think, but it's something to go for. I think to save money, as it is cheap options for 4.5 million, both playing goalkeepers. I think it's worth it if you have an expensive team in your starting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm gonna probably have like a 4.5 starter, then another 4 million fodder on the bench. and then just save that point 0.5. But yeah, it could be interesting to have both of these guys as they do rotate decently. Um, moving on to a few more players now. First one up is Trippier. I think the big one. I think Trippier's got a big price rise, which we did expect. I think he started the season at 5 million, so 1.5 million increase, which is quite high, but I think it is deserved after the season Trippier had. Obviously, I think he was the highest scoring defender in the game. So yeah, again, that was that's why really he's got that big price rise. However, if anyone's looked at Newcastle's fixtures, I mean they are quite tricky. I've looked at Newcastle's. I'm just pulling it up again. Newcastle actually start the season to Aston Villa, then they've got Man City, then they've got Liverpool, and then they've got Brighton. So for me, I'm pretty locked that Trippier will not be in my game week 1 team. No way he's in my team. I just think the fixtures are too tough. Plus, he's 6.5 million, so I think he's a bit too pricey for what I'm willing to spend on him. But let me know your thoughts, guys, on Trippier. Will he be in your game week 1 team? Because I think I'm going to go without him. What's your thoughts on Trippier, Jordan, in terms of the price rise? Obviously, it's as expected after his season he had.
Yeah, it's expected after the great season that Newcastle and particularly Trippier did have in his defensive role. I was expecting him to be actually much more expensive than 6.5 million because he was originally 5 million, I believe. So that 1.5 million increase, that's quite, I'll say, a bit generous. But I guess you have to consider defenders can't be too much money. But yeah, the price, I'm happy with Trippier. Only problem is his fixtures. Obviously, they're not the easiest ones that Newcastle do have, but Newcastle have shown to be defensively strong despite the opponents they may have. Obviously, they have against. But yeah, it is an argument whether if you want Trippier from day one, considering what fixtures they do have at the start of it. I think a lot of people will opt for other defenders that are maybe have bare fixtures and maybe are cheaper. But I'm 50-50 whether I have Trippier in my team or not from day one. I can't pass it completely on, just the way that Newcastle were last season. It will be interesting to see if they can obviously repeat or replicate the same performance they showed in obviously the season we just had. So yeah, I think Trippier is going to be a massive talking point in that defensive role.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So moving on to Paqueta, he's 6 million, obviously for West Ham. I can't remember what he was last season. Was he around 6.5? I'm not sure. But yeah, he could be a decent option around that 6 million mark. However, he's only 0.5 cheaper than Mitoma, and I think a lot of us would rather have someone like Mitoma with that goal threat that he provides. So I don't know if Paqueta is going to be an option for us at the start of the season. But he could be one, if West Ham prove themselves throughout the season, because obviously last season they did struggle. Just looking at who West Ham actually play, they start the season off to Bournemouth, then they've got Chelsea, Brighton, Luton, Man City, and Liverpool. So their fixtures actually aren't that good. So for me, they're on a void at the start, and Paqueta is one that I'm probably not going to have in my team. But if West Ham can show themselves back to their former glory, if maybe they push up into that European spots, then they could become another option again. But for now, I think as a starter, as a starting squad, I don't think he'll be in my team. Moving on to a few more players. Obviously, Jose Sarr. Obviously, he's not the big one in this graphic. The one we're going to talk about is actually Son. He comes in at 9 million, and I believe he was 12 million, I think, last season. So he's got a 3 million, decrease in price, which is quite a considerable amount of money that he's been dropped by. So yeah, 9 million for Son. We know he had a poor season last year. He did struggle, obviously, with injuries as well. But yeah, 9 million, I think now he could become an option because obviously last season he was way too expensive, around that 12 million bracket. A lot of us couldn't fit him in. Even when Spurs had double game weeks, it was very hard for us to get Son in. But at 9 million, Jordan, is he someone you're looking at, especially with Spurs now, with the new manager? they've just signed some few players like Madison as well. They're probably going to play a better attacking style of football as well. You'd expect. Is he someone that you could be looking at, throughout the season?
Yeah, he could be a cheaper option if you don't want to go for Harry Kane. He may be a good alternative, Son, because obviously his performance wasn't great last season, but that was down to obviously his persistent injuries that he did sustain throughout that season. So we do expect Son to obviously bounce back with Spurs, especially with the new manager who does prefer obviously an attacking sense in the team. So yeah, I quite like Son at 9 million now. He's quite affordable to have in your team, and as a Spurs asset, I'm quite excited to see what he can do this season coming up. I'm hoping that he can obviously do well at Spurs and he can come back to the form he was originally in, obviously before the season we just had. And yeah, I think he can become an option as well for a few FPL owners in that midfielder position. He's not, say, it's not too much of a squeeze at 9 million, but it is better than what his previous price was, as he wasn't playing at that price. But I think at 9 million, he can obviously have that form that matches the price of his value.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be keep an eye out on Son and Spurs and what they do, especially with I want to see what Madison's price is. Obviously, we have not got that yet, but Spurs do start off the season to Brentford, and then they have Man United. Then they've got Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield. So this start isn't too bad. It's up and down. But yeah, it's one to watch definitely. Son, I think he's going to be one that when double game weeks come along, Spurs have a nice one, he becomes an option again. Joseph Sarr, we're not going to discuss too much about Wolves, I don't think. 5 million goalie. I don't think many are going to be starting with him, but yeah, obviously he was a good goalie in the recent FPL seasons as well. Moving on to the big one, maybe. That these are the two most expensive players in the game. Let's start off with Haaland. He does get a price rise. I can't remember what Haaland's price was last season. Was it 11.5 or something like that? I think it was. Yeah, I think it was
Yes.
11.5, and then De Bruyne was 12. And when you look back now, 11.5, that was so cheap for Haaland. I mean, I think Haaland is now the most expensive player ever in FPL. I think it's only happened 3 times before. I think Ronaldo in 2008 or whatever, Van Persie, and also Thierry Henry, I believe, was 14 million. So it's not happened that many times. But I think it's one that is it had to happen. Um, you know, they can't have made him 13.5 or even 13, anything like that, because of what he's done last season with I think 36 goals. He's also on penalties, which is just crazy. And yeah, we expect him to score at a crazy rate again next season. I think 14 million is fair. Obviously, any more, then it's going to be hard to get other players into your team with that 100 million budget. So yeah, 14 million of your budget will be going to Haaland. Let us know if you're brave enough to go without him. But yeah, did you expect 14 for Haaland, Jordan? What was your prediction? I don't know. We ain't really spoke. Did you expect him to be cheaper or same price, really?
I wasn't expecting it to be 14 million. I think I was expecting or hoping that he'd be 13 million, considering the price he was on last season at 11.5. But yeah, that's a massive price value that Haaland. But then again, his season was outstanding as a player, so I think he deserves that respect of being 14 million and being one of the most expensive players in the FPL. It is a bit of a squeeze though, be Haaland being 14 million, because that does take up a lot of budget considering we only have 100
Yeah.
million total as well. So it is going to make choosing players around Haaland much more difficult, considering what we've seen of prices of players, especially in that midfield. It is going to be a bit of a headache, I think, for prices. It's going to be very expensive. I think in terms of premiums, we could probably only have two at this stage, because it is going to be tricky with Haaland in your team as well as another premium to obviously fit around having these players. And we're not going to really take out Haaland unless he's injured, or obviously Man City have a blank game week. So it's going to be really important to see how we build the team around Haaland
Mm.
being priced at that 40 million.
Yeah, essentially you've got 86 million to play with. Uh, Obviously minusing that 14 because you're gonna have Haaland in your team probably. So 86 million to spread out for 14 players. Um, Moving on to Salah, he's got a little decrease in price. So he was 13 million last season. He does come down to 12.5. I think um, we probably expected a small decrease. I think I expected a small decrease. I think 12.5 million is fair for Salah. He's still on penalties, which I think is big. Being that type of asset, he's also a midfielder, so he does get an extra point for scoring a goal, which makes Salah a bit more attractive. We know Liverpool had an off season last year pretty much, and even Salah at the start of the season he wasn't great. However, he did actually turn it around. I think since the turn of the year, I think he got the most points on any FPL player from January onwards, I believe. So he did turn it around. He did pick up more goals and also chipped in with a few assists. We know Liverpool's problem last season was it wasn't as much of a Salah issue, it was more of a team issue. So with Liverpool, with the signings they're making, I do expect a stronger Liverpool next season. I think Salah could be a decent option. And because Haaland's so expensive, that 14, a lot of people I think will go without Salah because they might just go with one premium. Um, and that could be attractive to people that want Salah in their team. Maybe he becomes a bit lower owned this at the start of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see, whether we have both of these players, Haaland and Salah, in the same team, which is something that I'm considering, or does it make sense to have one, which is Haaland, and then getting big in midfield, for example, and having like 4 or 5 midfielders that are cheaper, like around the 8 million mark. So that's going to be one to watch this year, I think, and how the template does form. But yeah, what's your thoughts on Salah, Jordan? 12.5 is probably expected that little drop.
Yeah, I think it's nice that Salah did drop in price, because it is going to be hard if you have Haaland and Salah in your team. That is 26.5 billion already spent. So literally, it is going to be hard to fit in these premiums because of the way they're priced now. But yeah, I think it is deserved of Salah, obviously, to still be expensive. I do expect Liverpool to obviously have a better start of the season compared to last season. And yeah, obviously Salah will be the focal point in that team. I think because of all the new players as well that we had last season for Liverpool, it was a bit of an adjustment for Salah to like get to know how these players work with each other, obviously. So yeah, I think we'll see an improvement from Salah from obviously day one for Liverpool, and obviously throughout the season we should see Salah doing what he does normally and scoring goals and getting assists, and obviously getting those points for FPL owners.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, I agree. Well, it's going to be interesting to see whether we go with both or just the one. We're going to quickly whiz through some of these ones now because they're not as some of the bigger players. So Gibbs White, 6 million. And then we've got Benson as well at 5.5. I think Gibbs White is decent. He had a decent season. But he comes in at 6 million for Forest. So it's going to be interesting to see in that regard whether we have Nottingham Forest assets. I don't think we will have too many of them, but maybe later down the line they become options again. Let us know your thoughts, guys, in terms of the price reactions so far. We're going to read a few of your comments out in a sec. Moving on to these ones that were released actually after the 1 p.m. I think around 2 o'clock, the teams um, released some of the fixtures, some of the players. So yeah, this is obviously some of the Luton Towns players. You got Adebayor, you got Osho, Clark, and then Bell. A lot of cheaper players in here. If you want to, for bench players, etc., 4 million. You got a defender there, which is if he's, he hopefully should start games, and yeah, just a cheap option. Moving on to, hold on, sorry. Over you got some Sheffield players. You got Norwood, who's 5 million. You got Sander Berge, who's 5 million as well. Again, McBurney, 5.5 million forward. So he's a cheap forward that you can have in your team that's going to start. So a lot of 5.5 million forwards that will actually play, which is nice to see from FPL, rather than having like a forward that won't start, just a bench fodder. So yeah, not much to discuss. Again, these teams, I think, no disrespect to them, but we're probably not going to have too many of them at the start in our team unless on the bench. Again, with Burnley, sorry, you've got Brownhill, Zarauri, and Roberts, etc. You've also got Liverpool. I think we've got to talk about Liverpool because obviously some of the assets that we probably would expect to have in our team. I think Trent is a big talking point. This FPL campaign, Trent has actually had he had a price decrease, hasn't he? Was it? I think was he last season? Was he 8 point?
No, it was in 7.5.
Yeah, sorry, he was 7.5, wasn't he? He had an increase, which is a bit mad, but yeah. Um, Trent Alexander-Arnold is now 8 million, which I want to get your thoughts, guys, in the comments. Let us know what you think. I personally think it could be a good thing because then it makes him harder to bring in, which is what I like. And yeah, Trent obviously started off the season not too well. I think that's fair to say about the whole Liverpool team in general. However, since he went into that inverted right back role, he was picking up assists and goals quite frequently. So he's an interesting one. I do probably want him in my team. It's just I've got to see, on the draft how I fit him in. What's your thoughts on Trent, Jordan, being at the 8 million mark?
I was a bit surprised, if I'm honest. I didn't expect Trent to actually rise in price. I thought he would be the same price, or have a little decrease in price. But yeah, it's 8 million. That is expensive for a defender. But again, Trent playing in that inverted right back position, he has shown near the end of last season that he can be dangerous in terms of getting assists and goals. So maybe that 8 million is justified from his new position, and we'll have to wait and see how obviously Trent does, obviously in this new position from day one onwards throughout the season. But yeah, it's going to make it difficult to fit in these players now that Trent is 8 million. Because if you want Trent, then you might have to sacrifice a premium to get him in. So it does make things interesting how players will set out teams, because I think there'd be a lot of diversity in our teams because of these expensive valued players like Trent at 8 million. So yeah, it's quite interesting how they valued him for this season.
Yeah, Trent at 8 million. Obviously, he's also now in that role. So I think he's kind of playing as a midfielder now, which makes him even more attractive, I think, to get the assists, etc. But on the other side, though, Robertson, on the other hand, has had he had a decrease of about 1 million. I think he was 7.5 million as well last season. He's now 6.5, and he could be a bit more attractive to bring in at that price bracket. However, Liverpool could actually buy a new left centre back, and that would mean Robertson potentially missing out on the team and might not actually be a starting player next season. So we'll have to wait and see whether Liverpool buy a new centre back because of the new formation they're playing. Robertson doesn't really fit that role as well as Trent does. However, you're looking at the rest of the players. Darwin Núñez had also a downgrade. Really, he was 9 million at the start of last season. He's now 7.5, which I think is fair. That he's come down a bit more now. I think Darwin Núñez could become a nice option now when Liverpool have a double game week, or if you want to take a punt. If he does start the season, because as of now we don't really know whether Darwin Núñez is going to start. It could be Gakpo up front, so that's one to watch. But if Darwin Núñez can pick up form at the start of the season and get some games, he could become an interesting option. And then McAllister comes in as well at 6 million. However, I don't expect McAllister to take penalty duties off Salah, so I don't think McAllister will be an FPL option for me anyway. I think I'd rather have the Trents, the Salahs, Núñez. Liverpool got other options, but yeah, it's interesting to see McAllister's price as well. And then finally, we've also got some Fulham prices, which I think was released not too long ago. So yeah, let's discuss Fulham. Mitrovic is now 7.5, which is interesting because he was 6.5 last season. I think he had also had a really good season, didn't he? So I think that's expected. Pereira's gone up. He's no longer 4.5 million. He's now 5.5. What's your thoughts on it, Jordan, in terms of Mitrovic? He's the same price as Núñez. Also, Nkunku, we've seen that 7.5 around that bracket as well. Do you think Mitrovic around 7.5 is fair? Is someone that you're going to consider?
I think from obviously the start of the season, I don't think it's a player that I would consider, but I think along the line, down the line for the season, yeah, Mitrovic could be an option to go for when obviously Fulham have nicer fixtures as well. At 7.5 there, that's not such a bad price for Mitrovic for a forward, especially when he was 6.5 last season. I think that's fairer that he has gone up by 1 million. And yeah, it is affordable for a forward position. It isn't a different alternative if you don't want to go for like a Harry Kane or somewhat more expensive. Cheaper option like Mitrovic could be better, especially with Watkins being 8 million as well. You could save that zero point 0.5 going for Mitrovic too. So there is a lot of positives in bringing in Mitrovic in terms of saving money, and he does clutch when it needs to be for Fulham, because you only really see goals coming from Mitrovic, and he is on penalties too. So you've got a nice bonus on top of that for going for him. And obviously for Pereira as well at 5.5. Yeah, he had a good season, I think, especially in the absence of Mitrovic. He did pretty good in intervals last season. So yeah, 5.5. I think that's still a pretty good price for Pereira, considering how well he played last season. And yeah, he could be another cheap bench option to go for in the midfield, possibly, if in case there is any injuries or whatnot to the main starting 11 in your midfield. So yeah, I think for these two, I think they're pretty good prices to opt for.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much all the price reveals today, I think. Um, how many teams did we actually get? So we got Fulham, Liverpool, Burnley, Sheffield, and we also got Luton. So we got 5 teams today, didn't we? In terms of the 5 teams tweeted out there, the team. So we'll probably get another 5 tomorrow. We get another 5 on Wednesday. Probably get another 5 on Thursday, and then I think the game will probably launch after around 6-7 p.m. on Thursday. That's just a guess, but we'll have to wait and see on launch day. But yeah, let's take a few of your comments. Colm says, I'm on Leno and the Burnley keeper at the moment. They rotate quite well. Yep, they do rotate quite nicely. I think he also says no to Trippier, which is I'm in that boat as well, I think. Um, David says, will we see your draft teams on launch day, or are you going to tease us? No, we will do a little draft, I think, on launch day, but it probably won't be our final draft. Obviously, we're going to probably have like 3 or 4 different drafts and start tinkering till the deadline, obviously, in August. Still a while away, but yeah, I think I will start, playing around with the team and see how many I can fit in now and see, what my team is going to look like from heading into game week 1. Cole also says, for me, it's either Haaland and Salah or Haaland and Trent, but not all 3. Um, for those that haven't watched the previous stream, I actually said those 3 were a lock for me. But obviously, with the prices now, I'm gonna see how I fit all 3 in. It might be too hard to fit all 3, so I'll have to maybe reconsider that. But yeah, this has been the price reveal video, pretty much, guys. We've just thought we'd do a little stream, react to today's announcements. They are going to be back again. I think. Sorry, we are going to be back again tomorrow to do part 2, which is the other teams that are going to be revealed tomorrow. I suspect the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea. We've got to see what Arsenal, the rest of their squad, what they look like. So it's going to be some Man City going to be an interesting team. I think, especially with players like Edison, etc. I'm interested to see what his price is. But yeah, make sure you guys do tune in for that. It should be a good one. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you do drop a like for us on the stream. We always appreciate your support. Also, make sure you are subscribed, to our channel if you haven't already. Please get us to 1,000 subscribers if we can. That is the next target. We're on about 800. So 1,000, hopefully, this season. But yeah, make sure you are subscribed, as I say, because there's a lot of content to come. It's going to be an interesting season, and hopefully we can start it with a bang. But yeah, Jordan, I think that's it from us. Anything else you want to add?
Just thank you guys for watching. Obviously, it's going to be a very busy week for us streaming wise, because obviously the price reveals will be literally every day until the very last team is obviously revealed. So yeah, take care. Obviously, we'll see you very soon, and have a nice evening.
Take care and peace out.